But, really good starting point. I always recommend it. It seems counterintuitive, but Alan Greenspan, before he went over to the dark side, did an incredible essay called Gold and Economic Freedom, back when he was an Ayn Rand disciple. And obviously I don't endorse everything that Ayn Rand ever said or believed, but go read that essay. It's a really good primer on why gold is absolutely inseparable from freedom, why any other kind of money is slave money. Starting off with education is critical, and then moving into the action phase, I think, is also important. If you believe in these things, you have elected representatives who are supposed to be representing you.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin weekly specials for May 5th through May 12th, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, we feature 10-ounce silver Royal Mint coins at just $2.99 over spot per ounce. The 10-ounce Britannia, 10-ounce Royal Arms, 10-ounce Little John, and 10-ounce Merlin are all 4.9s fine, and we have a very limited quantity. Again, they're just $2.99 over spot per ounce while supplies last. Next, backdated 1-ounce gold Canadian maples are only $69.99 over spot. And finally, backdated 1/10-ounce Platinum UK Britannia are just $29 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.
Welcome back to Liberty and Finance. We're delighted to have this returning guest. Alex Newman, a journalist and author, is the founder of Liberty Sentinel. He's also a contributor at Epoch Times. He joins us this Wednesday, May 7th, 2025. Alex, thanks for coming back on Liberty and Finance.
Great to be here. Thank you so much for having me, Dunagun.
You are into a lot of topics, and one article that you just posted in the last week got my attention, and I wanted it to bring it forward today. It's called Paying for Groceries with Gold? States Move to Restore Sound Money. I'd like to actually share that real quickly here so that people know briefly what that's about. One moment. Again, there's the Liberty Sentinel. Freedom is never free. How true that is. Pay for groceries with gold. States move to restore sound money. Allowing the use of precious metals in transaction will help tame inflation, restore the middle class, and protect the U.S. economy. Supporters said multiple states are jumping on the bandwagon. You talk in here about interviewing Republican Senator, Representative Ken Ivory of Utah, passing a bill with unanimous support to make gold a transactional currency. Looks like they're going to have to override a governor's veto on that. Florida House passing a bill to make gold legal tender. DeSantis says he's going to support that. And states pushing back on inflation with gold. You interviewed the author of Pirate Money, and that's Kevin Freeman. And this is so important because in that he emphasized, and as did Ken Ivory, emphasized the importance of allowing people to have freedom of choice in how they're going to save their earnings that they worked hard for, and not being forced to use the dollar, which is fiat currency that's being devalued at the whim of the Fed that people have no control over. So really, it's like taxation without representation, and that is tyranny. So glad that you interviewed those people. Check out all of those. We'll put links to them in the description of this video. I'm going to stop sharing that for the moment and bring us back to this talk. But one of the things that's so important, Alex, and I'm so glad that you've grabbed the bull by the horns here, is to stand up for ordinary people and their freedom, their rights to hang on to and to hold on to the fruits of their labor. It's common traditional law. It's biblically an injunction, not depriving the working man of his wages. And our founding fathers had the foresight, after coming off from the corruption and the oppression of taxation without representation and oppression by the Bank of England and all other banks that it was connected to across Europe, that had absolutely disdain for the common person and was grinding them down so they couldn't maintain their standard of living, etc. And they fled to a new country. And in our Constitution, you'll tell us what they put in there to protect us from those things. And here we've been talking with our viewers and subscribers for months and months about the importance of this. And I reached out to some influential groups that are in Florida here, where we domicile, and they're in charge of helping associations, homeowners associations, and community associations, including shepherding the funds and the treasuries of those. and talking to them about preserving and protecting the assets of homeowners associations, that the moms and pops that have paid their homeowners association fees every month, as happens on our house, to protect the people. And for example, owning real tangible assets like gold to protect everything else against market exposure. And I got a note back saying that gold is a speculative and volatile asset and does not pay a dividend or yield. Therefore, it is not appropriate, according to Florida law, for prudent and responsible investing on the part of homeowners associations. And my glasses just about fell off my head, knowing what it says in the Constitution, knowing how hard our forefathers fought to make sure that we had the protections of sound money available to us and part of the birth of our country. So what are some of the focuses that you had with those that you interviewed, and what did they clarify that everybody needs to know about for the protections that were and are part of our heritage in our country, and why it's important that we stand up for this now and encourage our lawmakers to fight for this? And it's happening on a state-by-state basis.
Well, thanks, Dunagun. So, yeah, I've been interested in gold going all the way back to college. I bought my first ounce of gold for $600, my first ounce of silver for $8. And of course, the people who say gold is speculative and volatile, I say, yeah, the price in Federal Reserve notes has been skyrocketing since the dollar was decoupled from gold. So I've had an interest in this for a long time. And a few years ago, I started noticing that more and more states were passing laws having to do with gold and silver. And I decided to look into it. And that culminated with this major investigative piece that I just did for the Epoch Times. I interviewed dozens of lawmakers, state and federal, across the country over a period of more than a year. And kind of the climax of all of this was just over the last few weeks, when state after state after state passed bills into law, creating what they're calling a transactional gold system. So in years past, a lot of these bills were, I would say, relatively minor by comparison. They declare gold to be legal tender. They allow the state to save part of its reserve fund in gold. They remove sales taxes on gold or capital gains taxes on gold. So those are important measures. But what we're talking about here is far more significant. I first started looking at this back in 2015 when the state of Texas created its gold bullion depository. I did a few big articles on that for the New American. And last year, I found out that Representative Mark D'Orazio, who I interviewed for this piece in the Epoch Times, I spoke with him at least 3 or 4 times over the course of writing this article. He had introduced a bill that would take that bullion depository and create a system where any citizen could take their gold down there or could buy gold and have it held there. And then the depository would issue a debit card style card that you could use to go purchase groceries or gasoline or whatever you wanted using gold. And what would happen is, you pay in gold, they deduct the gold out of your account at the depository, but it's then turned immediately into Federal Reserve notes, and the merchant gets paid in Federal Reserve notes, assuming that's what he or she wants. If they prefer gold, they can have gold as well. So that was really interesting. That got me interested enough that I said, I've got to write an article about this. Whether it passes or not, this is hugely significant. Because, of course, Article 1, Section 10 of the Constitution, as you alluded to, makes very clear that no state shall make anything other than gold or silver a tender in payment of debts. In other words, states are prohibited by the U.S. Constitution from having anything as legal tender other than gold or silver. If you don't believe me, go read it. Article 1, Section 10, everybody can find it right there. There's a number of other things states are prohibited from doing. That is one of them. And so as I was looking into what was happening in Texas, and by the way, this was very popular, I found out that the Republicans had done a vote on this, and 77% of voters, I believe it was, voted in favor of this proposal to create the transactional gold. Then I started seeing that other states were jumping on the bandwagon. Utah was moving in this direction. Arkansas was moving in this direction. Florida was moving in this direction. About half of all the states have legislation as we speak. It's either passed or going through the process in about 25 states right now. So, wow, this is a national trend, and nobody is talking about it. So I connected with Kevin Freeman. Almost all the lawmakers that you talk to about this will say, yeah, I got the idea from Kevin Freeman, from his book, Pirate Money. So he's been a very instrumental player in this. He hosts a podcast on The Blaze called Economic War Room. Very, very bright guy when it comes to economics. And so while I was writing the article, Arkansas passed almost unanimous. I think it was unanimous in one house and one vote against in the other house. I can't remember exactly. Governor Sarah Sanders Huckabee signed that into law shortly thereafter, making Arkansas the first state to have it signed into law. In Utah, that effort was led by Representative Ken Ivory, a very well-known politician in Utah. He was their Speaker of the House for a long time. And he led the effort there. They passed it, I think, unanimously in the House and maybe unanimously in the Senate or very close to it. Governor vetoed it. So they're right now working on a veto override. We have now passed this here in Florida. The governor told my staff that we are going to be signing that into law. So Florida will be next. In fact, by the time people see this, it may already be law in the Sunshine State. And there's a lot of other states. It's moving through the process right now in Texas. Ohio's got a bill. Georgia's got a bill. So these bills are all over the country. And the idea is every regular American, not just sophisticated investors, should be able to protect part of their savings by owning gold. And this is a simple system to do it, where you're not going to get fees on both ends and all the rest of it. So very, very interesting development. In fact, there's even some private sector players. Like there's a company called Glint out of the UK that does something similar. It's a private sector company, and their leadership is actually supporting it. They've been over here in the United States working with some of these lawmakers, even though it would probably be a direct competitor to what they're doing. So something hugely significant is happening here, folks. The fact that this isn't on the front page of your newspapers, even in the states where this has passed, should make you ask some real questions.
Yeah, I found a couple of pictures I want to share just to emphasize everything you just said. Here's the people who were trying to help wean us, protect us from what they had experienced at the hands of the Bank of England. And what they were trying to protect us from was also this phenomenon of the bosses of the Senate showing robber barons dominating American politics, including big banking and trusts and so on. And you've got the politicians doing the bidding of the moneyed interests. And that's the kind of thing that doesn't serve ordinary people. And it just burns me that the Constitution of the United States, the law of the land, lays this out absolutely clearly. There were numerous additions to that. There on the wall of my office behind me for years has been the Bland-Allison Act of February 28, 1878, there was a Coinage Act of 1792, etc., continuing to underscore and reiterate and to clarify that it is gold and silver. And the reason was, just as it was said that you need to chain down the politicians with the chains of the Constitution, is that's how you protect us, the ordinary people, from the ravages, the scourge of stealing our wages, earnings, savings, and retirements. So you've talked to these people, and they're getting it done, and so you've got some that are fighting the good fight in each and every one of these states, and the number of states is growing. It was like 9 states and 14 states and 19 states and 23 states. And you're right, it's really on the move. And I know that soundmoney.org is one place that people can find out more about what's going on in their states and who to support. But you've been a good advocate for not only just awareness, but also action on the part of people educating themselves and, frankly, educating their lawmakers, and at least expressing their voices to their lawmakers. So what do you suggest people should do if they want to make sure that their trust funds for their HOAs or their state's rainy day fund, surplus, et cetera, and their ability to even save their own earnings is that they have the freedom to have that protected properly?
Yeah, well, I would say it really begins with education. We all have to educate ourselves on this. There's a reason why your government school didn't teach you any of this stuff. If you want to call these things schools, I would quibble a little bit with that terminology. But, really good starting point. I always recommend it seems counterintuitive, but Alan Greenspan, before he went over to the dark side, did an incredible essay called Gold and Economic Freedom, back when he was an Ayn Rand disciple. And obviously I don't endorse everything that Ayn Rand ever said or believed. But go read that essay. It's a really good primer on why gold is absolutely inseparable from freedom, why any other kind of money is slave money. And I don't know what happened to Alan Greenspan. I don't know when he decided to sell his soul to Satan, but he did obviously go over and lead the Federal Reserve, and then in his capacity as the leader of the Federal Reserve, manipulated gold prices, testified about this in Congress, said they were leasing out gold in increasing quantities as the prices were rising. But step one, get educated on this. Step 2, get active, right? If you think this is something important, and our founding fathers certainly did, Alan Greenspan certainly did. If you go back to the Bible, several people told me this, every reference to real money in the Bible is either gold or silver, right? You never have like paper emitted as debt by a central bank. And so starting off with education is critical, and then moving into the action phase, I think, is also important. If you believe in these things, you have elected representatives who are supposed to be representing you. Odds are very good that they were in the same position as almost everybody else in this country. They got a bad, fake education. They don't know anything about any of these things. They probably haven't read the Constitution. They don't know that this is even an issue. And so once you're educated, you can play a major role in educating them and your community on these issues. Gold is a very unique asset in that it is divisible. It is portable. It is very scarce. It is inherently valuable because people desire it. There's a built-in perpetual demand for it, and it holds its value very well. One of the things that Ken Ivory said that really stuck with me when I interviewed him several times, he mentioned buying a house in Salt Lake City. If you had bought a house in Salt Lake City, would have been $20,000 back in 1970. And I forget the exact number of ounces of gold that was, but if you go to today, you could buy that same house for over $500,000 is now the average price of a house in Salt Lake City. And yet in gold, if you had that same gold that you had in 1970, you could have bought one house. Now you could have bought 3 houses. So that's pretty telling right there. And, I'm not a financial advisor. I don't tell people to, sell all your stocks. In fact, I think there are good companies to own, but I think it would be very foolish not to have at least part of your savings in an asset that has maintained its value for thousands of years and that by all indications will continue to preserve its purchasing power.
I'm going to share another glimpse of your article here. And folks, there's going to be a link to Alex's article at the New American in the description of this video. So go to the description of this video after we're done and click on that link to the article. It's got all the other links to the interviews that he did and some action steps. That's what I'm going to show right now. So let me get there right quick here. Hold on. So here's the article, and right near the bottom of the article is this list of action steps. Contact your U.S. representatives and senators. There's a link there to help make that easier. Additionally, urge your U.S. representatives and senators to enact legislation mandating a full audit of the Federal Reserve and restoring the gold standard. Next, contact your state legislatures in favor of legislation to nullify the Federal Reserve. Also, urge Congress and state legislators to stop nullifying the creation of the central bank digital currency. And all the actions that we've been talking about are how to do that is in the article. So I'm going to stop sharing that. Just so grateful, Alex, that you wrote this article, that you did the research that leads up to it, that you've been talking to these. We're going to try to get some of them on this show, and maybe we can try to do collaborative on that too, as well as doing a panel to where we can get some of these leaders, because there's in a lot of these states, they're serving as leader. We've certainly talked with Patrick Holland from the Missouri Freedom Initiative. They helped to draft with legal counsel's aid template legislation that has then been borrowed and used and adapted by many other states, so that it's a grassroots effort. Some of these organizations are helping each other to get the job done, because what works in one state then often can be leveraged and used well in another state. Don't have to reinvent the wheel. And we need that. We need to move quickly on this, because there's a limited window of opportunity here. Just as our clients who call us up trying to secure their family's financial future, whether it's gold and silver, to protect themselves from banking risk, from market volatility, from corrosion of our purchasing power through runaway inflation, and on, they're seeing that the environment around us is hostile to the thriving and the well-being of our families. So time is of the essence to take action. Time is now to go ahead and reach out and get this, support the people who are doing the heavy lifting and get it done. We're going to try to get them their voice here on the channel to give them more output. We'll cooperate with any other channels that want to help, share that information. And there'll be a link to your article, Alex, in the description of this video. In addition to all of that, other ways that people can connect and follow your work that you do on an ongoing basis on many related topics about what's good for our families, good for our children, good for our country, etc.
Well, thank you, Dunagun. And, I probably sound like a broken record, but I always tell people you got to get your kids out of the public schools. They're not going to learn about economics. They're not going to learn truth. They're not going to learn logic. They're not going to learn reason. And I can say that unequivocally. I don't care what district you live in and how great you think your local school is. You've got to educate them properly. You've got to protect them. So people can find some of the work we do there. I'm a senior fellow at Classical Conversations. It's the nation's largest homeschool program. We've got 135,000 students across the country. If you're looking for a good place, I'm also on the board of the Freedom Project Academy. It's an online K through 12 classical school, and you can even take like one class if you prefer, rather than the whole program. So those are two really easy ways to get great education for your kids. You can get our newsletter for free at libertysentinel.org, and then of course you can subscribe to the New American magazine at thenewamerican.com. And I post all of this stuff over on my X account at AlexNewman_JOU.
Well, we are grateful for your recurring presence here. Every time you come, we'll get some comments underneath the video that say, "This guy's great. How come you've never had him on before?" So, folks, we do get Alex on about every month or two, as frequently as we can get on your busy calendar. You're a man of the world. You're flying all over the place, attending all these UN summits on all kinds of crazy stuff to try to make sure that we are aware of it and out in front of it. So thank you for doing that first. And secondly, thank you for your recurring visits here. Folks, if you want to find out previous interviews with Alex, just jump on Liberty and Finance at youtube.com/Liberty and Finance and put in Alex Newman as your search term, and you'll see a whole list of interviews we've done with Alex on these important topics. So on behalf of all of our viewers and subscribers, and by the way, only half of our viewers are subscribers. So if you're not yet a subscriber of Liberty and Finance, just click the subscribe button under where you're watching us. That's number one. Number two, get on our free mailing list. Just go to our website, libertyandfinance.com. Liberty and Finance, all spelled out, all one word, .com. Put in your email address, click submit. Make sure you confirm on the confirming email. And we won't spam you, won't share your email address with anyone. It's completely private, and you'll get one email in your inbox per day with all of our Alex's interviews and all of our other guests and any weekly specials, so you won't miss a thing. So, Alex, thank you for joining us this time again on Liberty and Finance.
Really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Dunagun.
This is Kaiser Johnson with Liberty and Finance, and these are the Miles Franklin weekly specials for May 5th through May 12th, 2025, while supplies last. First this week, we feature 10-ounce silver Royal Mint coins at just $2.99 over spot per ounce. The 10-ounce Britannia, 10-ounce Royal Arms, 10-ounce Little John, and 10-ounce Merlin are all 4.9s fine. And we have a very limited quantity. Again, they're just $2.99 over spot per ounce while supplies last. Next, backdated 1-ounce gold Canadian maples are only $69.99 over spot. And finally, backdated 1/10-ounce Platinum UK Britannia are just $29 over melt per coin. To order our specials or any of the many other options we have available, call us at 1-888-81-LIBERTY. That's 1-888-815-4237. We're available after hours and on weekends, and we look forward to speaking with you.